I just thought that I'd just say a couple of words at the outset around process for dealing with the draft annual plan, and I guess as agreed, due to the significant amount of work that we've already done in workshops and staff have gone away and worked on for us, this morning the Council will debate the proposed annual plan and amended LTP. But I have to say we have to get the form right in order to comply with our friends at the Office of the Auditor General and their representatives here in Christchurch. So this means that when we have decided on any amendments to the annual plan and or amended LTP, we need to take a break, and this break is really required for our finance team to analyse the impacts of any changes and communicate and discuss these with Audit New Zealand. So we're going to have 2 breaks during the course of this part of the meeting, and I'll come back to that, the second one, the first one after this. If Audit New Zealand is satisfied that there are no significant or material changes, then they will be able to receive what's called the letter of representation, which has already been signed by us, and produce their audit opinion. We could then attach the audit opinion to the consultation document, and Council can formally resolve recommendation 5, which is to approve and adopt the consultation document, including the Audit New Zealand report. I think it's wise that we avoid changing the consultation document if we can possibly do that, as changing that will mean Audit New Zealand will need to re-evaluate it, or revalidate it really. In respect of the order of proceedings for today's meeting, the Council needs to adopt the information that is relied on by the content of the consultation document, and which provides the basis for the amendment before the Council adopts the consultation document. We are reminded that we need our own legal advice, so Ian Thompson will be at the ready to satisfy itself that the adoption processes comply with the strict requirements of the Local Government Act 2000 and I've written 3 but it's 2002. Section 93G, information to be adopted by local authority in relation to long-term plan and consultation document. Before adopting a consultation document under Section 93A, the local authority must prepare and adopt the information that A, is relied on by the content of the consultation document adopted under Section 93A and is necessary to enable the Auditor General to give the reports required by Section 93C4 and 93D4 and provide the basis for the preparation or amendment of the long-term plan. So that is why we'll need to take 2 breaks in the process so that any proposed resolutions can be vetted by our legal advisors as well. That being said, we did call for advice on amendments that Council has proposed, and for the purposes of the debate, the following amendments can be assumed will be moved. A reprofiling of the head-to-head walkway, returning Manuka Cottage to the program, bringing forward Woolston Pool site investigation. And in terms of fees and charges, no fee increase in funeral plot burials for full-size plots for a further 12 months while further investigations are taken, increasing Hagley Park car park fees paid to CCC to cover costs, and removing reference to childcare facilities at Pioneer Early Learning Centre, which personally I think is an error in admission and could have been dealt with that way. We provided overnight information on other matters which were not supported by staff recommendations, but we have asked for analysis to be undertaken which can be fed into the process. This is a draft and we're going out to public to invite their feedback. So the process will be just a brief opening statement from me, and I will formally move the resolutions as they sit in the on the agenda, but with the view that we will take a break after the debate and we will get the resolution into the final form. We will then have a debate with councillors participating up to 5 minutes each, and then we'll take that first break, deal with any proposed amendments, agree a position on amendments subject to finance clarification on impact, and then the second break will occur while they undertake all of the work that they need to undertake and to communicate with audit. But at that time, council business can continue. So we can move back to other items on the agenda, and we can come back to the voting on the draft annual plan. Finance will then be able to provide detailed assessment of changes and any required updates to the recommendations or supporting information, and Finance will have a discussion of the impact of these with Audit New Zealand. If that is immaterial in Audit New Zealand's opinion, the council resolutions will be able to be approved at that point. So the reason I wanted to spell that out in some detail is that, you know, sometimes we think that it would be a good idea to move an amendment at this stage in the process, and I guess that the risk is that then that requires audit to go back through an analysis of the impact and actually either require a full audit review or review the council position on amendments. So I'm just making that clear that this is at the beginning of a process, that it is a draft that's going out for public engagement. All of the community boards will be invited in to make their detailed submissions based on community engagement that they will be undertaking. So there is quite a long way to go. At the point that we have a resolution carried that satisfies those requirements, then we continue through the balance of the meeting, and then we take a break for Easter. So, right, so on that basis, could I, formally move the resolution as set out on the audit paper for item number 4, 5, 6. Am I doing
26?
I'm looking at it in front of me, but I can't see.
Page 5.
Can't see what.
It's number 2, page 5.
Yeah.
Item 26.
Yeah, item 26.
26.
Right, item 26. So I'll move the staff recommendations, but that is for the purposes of the debate, and that's seconded by Vicky Buck. So I'll just make, I only want to make a brief introductory comment because I'll speak at the end. I think that for me, where we've got to with this draft plan is very much what we said we'd do at the conclusion of our long-term plan process last year. We said that we would go back and review the capital program, and we did. We brought in an external advisory committee, an expert advisory committee. It was interesting, a comment was made in the media the other day about the amount of the cost of that. All of the people that contributed to that donated their time because they felt that it was important that they assisted the council with that external review. And I think bringing fresh eyes to a council organisation has been an extremely positive process, and I would like to acknowledge and thank Roger Bridge, Gary Moore, Corin Bolstad, Bob Blythe and the Sarah and Skirt officials that joined with them in order to undertake that analysis. And I'd also like to acknowledge that the Chief Executive also played a very important role by bringing in an external person into the council as part of a priority setting, somebody who was capable of helping the organisation lead what is in fact a priority setting process, and that has been incredibly helpful as well and provided a very strong but important interface between governance and management. And I feel absolutely confident going forward that as an organisation we are going to be able to budget for what we can deliver, and where we can bring projects forward because they are ahead of schedule, the money will be there to be brought forward to enable them to be delivered. And I couldn't have said that 1 year ago, but I feel like I can say that today. So I really think the organisation does need some recognition for what has been an extraordinary shift over a very, very short period of time. But this is exactly what we said we'd do. We knew that when we went out for consultation on the long-term plan last year, that we were going to have an enormous challenge over explaining to people that the only things that we could put in our plan were things that we could substantiate to the Office of the Auditor General. And that meant that we had to be able to put in the value of our assets, because we knew that we would have to be able to rely on it. We couldn't put the insurance settlement in because we didn't have the insurance settlement. We did put an assumption, but actually that assumption has proven to be lower than the amount that we've actually received from our insurers, and that has put us in a much better financial position than we were 12 months ago. We also have settlement with the Crown over the horizontal infrastructure. I wouldn't describe myself as particularly happy with the result, but it is what it is, and it is a result. It's confirmed, it's settled, it's that's the position that we have ended up in. And what that means is that we can go ahead with confidence, knowing exactly what our financial position is. And when I reflect on the first annual plan that we did, sitting around this table, having been elected in October 2013, and not knowing what our financial position was, not realising how much had been signed up to in the cost-sharing agreement, and in fact not realising all of the hooks that were in that cost-sharing agreement until we were elected, and then finding out that the insurance recoveries hadn't progressed fast enough, and then finding out that the horizontal infrastructure spend had been grossly overestimated by our own organisation. You know, all of those things, and then finding out subsequently that standards were changed in a way that didn't represent, in my view, the best practice of working collaboratively together on a solution, rather than one party taking a position and adopting it and advising the other party. So we've had a hugely challenging 2 and a bit years, but we've come a long way, and I don't want to underestimate the strength of an organisation that has managed to turn itself around in such a short period of time. So that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction. This is the plan that we said that we would introduce after our long-term plan, and it is in a much better space than it was. We are in a much better space than we were. We've managed to lower the rates increase to a cap of 5% for the next 3 years. We've managed to spread our capital program, not so much that it places our infrastructure at risk, but actually puts us in a better place so that we can prioritise and bring forward projects as and when they're able to be delivered, rather than a wish and a prayer, which is the way that we have done things to a certain extent in the recent past. So,
to move these amendments
the suggestion is that I move the amendments and notes at the same time, so that they're all dealt with in the same resolution. But obviously we'll still take the break after the debate. So, well, rather than ask people to put up their hands, I'm just wondering if we should just go around the table.
put up their hands.
It's just a procedural question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right. I was waiting on others, but I do take responsibility for the lateness on ultimately my 2 amendments. I have had staff advice in the positive, so I'd like to ask whether I could put those 2 amendments over Danelle and Wainoni. I've had a conversation with Andrew, and there's more than sufficient confidence to...
They're included in the notes.
Yes, they're not committing us the costs right now, obviously, but to investigate
Yeah, they're not.
We might want.
They will be included in the notes, is the advice that I'm receiving.
Thank you
So
very
they will be.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Thank you. I note the head-to-head walkway amendment, and I'd just like to get a little bit of further information on that if I can, around a level of certainty that if there is work that can be done in the next financial year, that we will bring those funds forward in order to enable that work to be done. Because my understanding from staff is that there is sufficient work to be done in order to spend the budget that originally was in the long-term plan for that year. So I'm certainly interested in the rationale for pushing funds out when my understanding is that the work is actually able to be done as planned. So what's the reason for pushing that out in view of the fact that I'm being advised by the staff closest to the project that they can deliver?
Sorry, we were going to debate the whole thing. We'll come back to the amendments when we get to that part of the meeting, but we need to have an adjournment and sort out the detail of the amendments.
So so the opportunity to question around the amendments comes when?
Probably after the break.
Yeah.
We were just going to debate the
Right, okay.
entire, the CD and the financial strategy and the...
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is debate and then questions come after.
Yeah, we agreed this earlier in the week, that we would, to structure the day, that we would debate the going out to consultation on the annual plan and the amended LTP. We wouldn't have a consultation document if we weren't amending the LTP. We would just be having an annual plan process. The consultation document arises because we're amending the LTP as a result of the review of the capital program. So that's really that's the nub of what we're going out to consult
So from a
on.
process point of view, we're debating first, then raising questions, and if there are further amendments, they'll be put at that second stage as well.
If the amendments need to be tidied up, then they can be tidied up before then. But I said I was moving them just for the sake of getting the debate going.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, so apologies
Yeah.
for my misunderstanding.
No, that's right.
So from a debate point of view, the most notable part of this annual plan, as has been said, is the changes that it makes to the long-term plan. And in an environment where we've got a far greater level of certainty than we had this time last year when we were putting out the long-term plan for consultation. The insurance is now settled, we've got certainty around around the horizontal infrastructure, but more particularly, the review of the capital programme has taken place. And I'm really pleased that as a council, we've been able to respond to the concerns that were expressed by some at this time last year regarding the deliverability of a large capital programme, some would say an impossibly large capital programme. And the work done by the Capital Review Working Group has really informed this, along with a lot of work that's been done by staff and advice from staff as well. And that means that we've now been able to take a far more realistic view of the capital programme and its deliverability. And not only are we able to do that, we actually have done that. We've really interrogated that capital programme and looked at where things can and cannot be delivered. And the thinking is certainly not around whether we can afford to deliver, it's whether we actually are capable of delivering. So whether there are consenting issues that might delay a project, or whether there are capacity to build issues that might delay a project, or where indeed there's an opportunity to consult with the community that needs to be taken, which may mean that a project isn't able to be delivered in line with its original timelines. I'm pleased to see that there remains a strong commitment to provision of community facilities and rebuilding of community facilities, and I'm particularly pleased to hear that there remains flexibility within this budget to bring funds forward to meet the community expectation and to meet community demand for facilities if it turns out, in fact, that we are able to deliver more quickly than we're anticipating we can in the work that's been done with the plan. So, in short, I think it's great that we are fully committed to continuing to deliver community facilities, to delivering a good standard, an equitable standard of roads and footpaths throughout the city, and that we're doing that in a far more realistic way that ties in the capital programme as it appears on paper with what's actually capable of being delivered. There is, of course, a link between that and the financial strategy. The People's Choice Councillors have always taken the view that we oppose the sale of assets, so I'm particularly pleased to see that there's no requirement for a capital release in the next financial year, and I'm also pleased to know that there's work been done by CCHL that will inform the future view of capital release, noting in particular that capital release doesn't necessarily mean the sale of assets, and that there may well be options to release capital from the balance sheets of the companies that Council owns through CCHL without actually needing to sell those companies or the shares in those companies. So all of these things are moving in a direction that I'm increasingly comfortable with. So I welcome this going out for consultation. I also am pleased to see that there are a number of ways that the community can engage with the consultation process this time, particularly around the involvement of the community boards and arguably more accessible opportunity to engage with the consultation process, and using technology in order to allow that to happen as well. So there will be aspects of this draft annual plan that the communities will have strong views on, and I absolutely welcome hearing those views and being able to respond to them when we come back to finally debate this before we adopt it.
Vicky.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to see what's in front of us because it looks far more like a Christchurch City Council that I was familiar with. The borrowing doesn't look nearly as scary, and the ratios don't look nearly as scary as they did the last couple of years. I like the fact that what this does is put prioritisation on earthquake repair where they are needed, so that there is at least footpaths and roads that work in areas that have been hardest hit. I think that's really good. I also like the fact that we've put a very real emphasis on community facilities, which is great. If we look at what's actually in the annual plan, just looking at pools, for example, there is a new southwest pool and also a new southwest library, QE2, Woolston, Metro Centre, and some saltwater pools in Brighton as well. An emphasis on libraries and community facilities and things that bring the community together, because we always have to remember, and one of the challenges of local government is always remembering that actually at the heart of local government is people, rather than roads and pipes. I'm delighted that the borrowing ratios are not nearly as scary as they were. They're still a bit scary in my mind, but I feel like we're gradually getting to the point where Council is resuming control, and I look forward to a great deal more of that happening. In terms of the capital release, I don't see capital release as selling any of the strategic assets personally. I don't think we need to. We've listed Orion, the airport, and what's the other one? The port. As our strategic assets. I knew there's another one over in Littleton. And if we look at how we could put some debt onto those and take more dividends from them, I think we can easily reach the targets that we've set ourselves, which have been reduced from 750 million to 600 million over a longer period of time, without actually selling any of those key strategic assets, and I'm delighted by that. I think there's also some really important environmental initiatives in here that I really like. Obviously the cycleways may take a year or two longer, but we get them. We get separate cycleways so that you actually feel safe cycling. Safe footpaths, obviously an emphasis on walkways, and I support your head-to-head one. We've actually gone out for public consultation on the non-use of Roundup, because we think that's not a sensible thing to do in terms of using it. And also a real emphasis on the quality of our water in terms of the Heathcote particularly, which is nowhere near what a river should look like in Christchurch, and we have put a very strong emphasis on cleaning that up, even though some people may think that that's ECAN's job. So it is important that we do all of those things. So I like our emphasis on earthquake repairs, on community facilities, bringing the community together, not selling our key strategic assets, which is how I interpret our program of capital release, and on environmental initiatives. So I'm really pleased to second it.
Yanni.
Thank you. Thank you. Paul and I had the pleasure of attending a local residents group meeting, AGM, just a few days ago. And of course, there's a lot of information in the infrastructure strategy, the financial strategy, the draft annual plan, the long-term plan, the consultation document. But when you actually try and explain what it is that we're doing, I think the best place to start is on page 10 of the consultation document. Priorities for our capital program. Repairing and rebuilding facilities in communities most affected by the earthquakes. Reducing the flooding risk, for example, the Knight Stream and Bells Creek projects. Reaffirming our commitment to the eastern suburbs so outcomes and levels of service are even across the whole city. Ensuring communities have good social infrastructure so people feel safe and involved. Key facilities are libraries, rec centres and pools. Prioritising the repair of our streets, pavements and curbing across suburban areas, particularly for the worst affected communities and areas. Prioritising spending on water quality, including protecting our groundwater and raising the quality of our urban rivers. And prioritising suburban regeneration in the most earthquake affected areas while balancing the suburban and central city projects. And I think that gives a really nice indication of where this council is proposing to go through its draft annual plan, and given the significant changes to our financial strategy and possibly to our infrastructure strategy, I think that's a really good starting point to try and explain in simple English what we're trying to achieve. I think we do need to reflect on what's happened and the concerns that were raised last year, which were really around if we had enough prioritisation around the community versus the central city and some of the anchor projects. And what people told us through that process was that they saw that actually linking investment to social outcomes was important, not just to economic ones, which were seen as the driver behind anchor projects. They also talked about rebuild aspiration versus community need, central government need versus community need, the economic priorities versus social recovery needs, the loss of community facilities versus commercial projects, and the need for council to better advocate to government on behalf of the community. And I think this consultation document, this proposal, really signals a change to the direction that we did last year. And that was based on the uncertainty. A lot of people were critical of the uncertainty. But I think fundamentally, we're in a much better place. There is no need to sell off assets. We've had increased growth. We've had the insurance payout, which has been a positive from a financial point of view, and also gives us the flexibility to deliver. We've got better financial performance of our council-owned companies. So the companies that we were considering selling off are actually ones that are performing well, and are actually helping to reduce our burden. So that is a real plus. And also, the reality is that, as was pointed out last year, but really important, we've just had the Chief Executive's update for this month's council meeting. We've got a huge amount of carry forwards. So this plan is really aiming to address that significant carry forward. I do think there's some challenges ahead, and that includes the infrastructure repairs. And although we've sorted out the horizontal infrastructure review, actually what's happened is we've gone from, initially council's financial strategy was based on repairing and renewing the infrastructure to a better standard, resilient infrastructure. That was changed to like for like, and now we're in the situation where we've got less for like. So we do have a challenge around that infrastructure, and hopefully communities who are bearing the brunt of those changes can actually engage in this process and make it clear over where the priorities are. So there's a number of things in here that actually I don't support, but I think the really important thing is that we let the community have a say, and it's much better to have things in there that the community can comment on rather than withdrawing some of those things now. So in some of the amendments I'll make reference to that. I think it's really important that we do get more certainty around what streets will be renewed and when, and balanced against the expenditure in the central city. But fundamentally, I think the goal of this council should be, and the goal of this draft change, significant change to our long-term plan, is about how do we create a more modern dynamic, sustainable, healthy and beautiful city. And when you look through the priorities, I think this document goes a long way to doing that, and I think it's to be applauded. So I'd like to propose some amendments, but I know now's not the time to do that. But fundamentally, I think this is about making choices around our priorities as a city and as a council, and I think that page 10 of the consultation document sets that out really clearly.
Thank you. Glenn?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all the staff who put this together and the work that the elected members have done as well, the collegiality around that. I really hope that people hone in on this document, especially and including with 3.4.1 in the document, which talks about this plan differing significantly from the LTP. I think those words in a way come in through quite understated. It more than differs significantly in my view for the reasons which my colleagues have outlined already. The insurance settlement being $80 million over, the 10-year capital program reduction to 146 million, 750 down to 600 over capital release, reduced need to borrow, higher growth expected in the city's rating base. There are others. Under deliverability is a huge part of this. This really gives rise to me over big questions over why we ever would contemplate going down the path of asset sales. The Auditor General came back and said that actually you had to have that fallback. But I think if they were in that position to cast their eyes over the whole public sector in Christchurch, they would have seen that everyone was behind in terms of the rebuild in the city. They would know that from business as usual times. They would know that that's amplified in an earthquake rebuild time where everyone is going frantically to build back, but actually they can't build back as fast as they'd like. That's fundamentally due to planning. I've got 3 things I want to quickly show you, and I will stick to my time. So the first, Dwayne Major's on the left. I can't remember the other guy's name. That's only because I know the guy on the left. Look at what this did for New Zealand in terms of public ownership. I'm not sure how you measure this. In some countries they have a happiness-ometer or something like that. New Zealand is kind of eccentric and individual enough to take on that measure in future. But look at what that did for our country in terms of retaining something in public ownership. There's a kind of dividend that's palpable. It may not be able to be measured in financial terms, or actually it could be, but look what that did for our country. I've got another one next, and this is not about the flag debate. This is about the flag now flying again at the Cenotaph in New Brighton. One of our companies came to the rescue without charging the RSA. The local MP got the flag, but one of the companies came to the rescue to have that flag put up. That they fixed the pole. It had been vandalised. They did some welding. They didn't charge. That's a kind of a dividend again, which could be measured in financial as well as social terms. The next here we go. Someone doing some dredging, not dredging. It's weed eating in the river. Again, one of our companies is involved in a citywide clean-up of our 2 major rivers on May the 7th. The total cost will be in the region of $10,000, which we hope to find somewhere either in the current operational or grants or somewhere. $10,000. They won't be charging. The only charge will be for the skips to pick up the rubbish. Where else are you going to get that social dividend, and I would argue actually financial dividend, but through ownership and retention of ownership of our assets? 2 quick final points if I've got the time left, and I don't need those slides anymore. Just over the residential red zone, you will know that I'm not promoting the fixing of the Pages Road Bridge. There have been some furious arguments over that. I've had some conversations with staff, and if it is the case that that's due to a hold-up over the residential red zone, although Scoot have actually designed that bridge, then we need to get on with consultation over the red zone. Many of the groups in the community have already begun that process. I don't see a need to duplicate it. So it's my intention to go out and have a conversation with those groups to double check, are you ready to get going? I think our community, I suspect we're ready, but I need to double check with them and to ensure that we get the process going. In terms of regeneration, I sense a lot of political support to actually get that legacy project up and running in New Brighton, and if we can come back with some costings, I think we can actually get it underway. Look at what signalling investment did for property values in the east of Christchurch in recent times. That was due to the council, and that was a big front pager. It'd be good if those values in terms of increase were sustained, but look at what we can achieve together if we work in partnership with the ministry and others to give this side of the city a huge boost. So those are my two main things today. The two amendments I'm putting up I think are deliverable, and I hope to have your support for those later on.
Thank you. Paul?
I'll be brief in this point, so I probably won't take 5 minutes, but I'd first like to actually thank and congratulate the staff for all the work they've done on the draft annual plan. We're actually today able to make a considered and informed decision on accepting the draft annual plan that we have in front of us today. I'm actually also looking forward to hearing from our community on their views and thoughts in relation to this draft annual plan. I'm also pleased to see that our careful and considered approach in developing and setting the long-term plan direction has provided some good news for Christchurch. It has enabled lower borrowing, lower rate increases, and the delay in the capital release program. And we've heard today, obviously, that that has concerned a number of members and a number of people out there in the community. So this has given us time to consider more innovative ways we can fund our future borrowing. Now, these changes are largely due to a higher growth rate than was expected within our city's rating base, an $80 million greater insurance payout that was budgeted for through the long-term plan. Obviously, the major contributor to this good news was the insurance settlement prior to Christmas, delivering an $80 million increase to what was budgeted for in our long-term plan. I'm also pleased to see we're taking a more realistic approach to our capital program, but I'm also mindful we have a lot of work to do in this space. And if there's any ways we can speed up, that would continue to look for ways we could actually make this happen, because I think it's really important. I want to congratulate our CE, Carleen Edwards, for the work she's done on our Great for Christchurch program, which appears to be over-delivering. Continuing to streamline processes and continued prudent financial management of our operational expenditure, I'm certain will deliver greater savings without the loss of quality of service. However, I would like to ask that we ensure we're holding our contractors accountable and that they are delivering what we are paying for. We often get complaints about the state of our roadside gardens, weeds in the median strips, and I think these are things that can be addressed by actually putting a lot more pressure on our contractors to make sure they're delivering what they say they're going to deliver. And I think it'll go a long way to actually easing some of those complaints we get. I'm also concerned that we're pushing a lot of projects that could be delivered earlier, and I believe the council should consider maybe a floating legacy fund that would be a more prudent move, especially considering the ever-changing environment that we are dealing with, which consistently throws up opportunities that aren't actually known right at the moment. So that's something I'll be looking at moving a bit later. However, I'm happy to approve today's draft annual plan and looking forward to engaging with our community, and thanks.
Thank you. I have to say I'm very, very pleased to see the document in the state that it is now and how hard everyone is on it. I, from the start, though, have been very wary of suggestions and direction that puts business as usual work on the back burner and prioritising with earthquake damage and repair. I'm not saying that earthquake damage and repair shouldn't be a priority, but if putting BAU work on hold, things that are key to the amenity in our city, key to the smooth running of things in our city, is because of a political fear of a backlash, if you like, in realising more capital in our assets, and I'm certainly not in support of that. We have never, ever, ever suggested that there should be a sale of strategic assets, and I totally reject that comment from some of my colleagues this morning. It's capacity that is the issue, and I think that if we can't actually provide the resources to do the work, then there is little point in pushing for some of the work that we have done in the past. I would like to give credit to all of the staff and the elected members who have worked incredibly hard and long hours to achieve the really best outcomes for Christchurch, and I congratulate them for that. Thank you.
Jimmy?
Okay, yeah. In principle, I support for the public consultation, for the consultation document for the draft annual plan 2016 and 17. And and some other relevant documents. However, I'm particularly concerned some issues. The first one, Southwest, the leisure center and the new home-based service center and the library. Because as a local councillor, if we review the consultation document, particularly on page 11, highlight the criteria or priorities for the capital program, repairing or rebuilding facilities in the community most affected by the earthquake. And also in the long-term plan, the Southwest Nature Center was scheduled to open in mid-2018. And the new home-based service center and library will be open in mid-2017. However, the draft annual plan now expects the construction will start in the second half of 2017, which means after the July of 2017. So the whole facility is due to open in 2019. But regarding the budget, the change probably will be the open in June of 2020. So my concern is the first, not complying with the criteria for the capital program, the priority. Because the new home-based service center and library has been designated to replace the shutdown the Suburban Service Center, which was affected by the February 2011 earthquake. However, if we review the time frame and the funding amended allocation, this facility will be delayed for 3 years because the long-term plan in mid-2017 consultation document for the draft, the 2016-17 annual plan will be in 2019. Time frame for two documents is different. This is the second issue. Because consultation document will be open in 2019. However, didn't mention which month, the key program the changes will be open in June 2020. So we review these two documents. There is a gap will be between the 6 months to 17 months. So I understand from the this draft the annual plan, the staff, the business case for both the new service center and library as well as Southwest Leisure Center will be prepared by the April, which means next next month this year. So the consultation document on page 11 says construction will start in the second half of 2017. So I'm very disappointed about this time frame. Why should this take so long? Our council should be able to deliver both this project in a more timely way. So I show you, Mayor and the councillors, that for the next year's annual plan, I will expect both projects will be planned and start in the early of 2017, which means I support its early delivery of quality community facility. Second is I'm concerned is the fee and the charges for outdoor swimming pool. Because the proposed fee and the charge for next summer, the season for outdoor, the charge will be increased from current $2 to $2.50. That's increase for 25%. And the adults will be increased from current $2 to $3.50. That's increase for the 75%. So this the increase, not only me, but I think a majority of community and the family probably can afford to pay this high increase. So I believe the success of the dollar pool coupled with the mental strain on people in the moment, that this will be a great signal to encourage more to be active, healthy, and have fun recreation outdoor facility. And also, as you are aware, after the earthquake, lots of residents, most of them are families, moved to the southwest area from the east and some other area. We currently only have the outdoor pool, so we have no the leisure and aquatic center. So this the utility is so, quite high for the community, for the parent families, etc. Third item is regarding to the capital release. I'm pleased that in the long-term plan, the capital release has been reduced by $150 million from the original $750 million to $600 million. However, in terms of council financial, the position has changed significantly. And also, especially council has settled its earthquake insurance claim and received $635 million. So I insist on that I'm not support the asset sales. First, I'm happy that this annual plan to keep and reduce the rates, the increase to 5% for another 3 years. I'm quite happy there. So overall, I support the earliest possible delivery of the complex of the Southwest facility and some other area, the community facility. Second, I'm particularly concerned the outdoor fee increased too high. Third one, I'm insist on not support the asset sales. And I'm happy the rates reduced 5% this year and for the next 2 years. So we wait and see the public community feedback, and then we might have further review and make the final version of decision. Thank you.